Yeah.
Yes.
Does my voice sound? Do I sound like Michael Caine yet?
Yes. Like 11 barbarians, that sounds like a lot, but only one guy from the England squad. And it's like, surely somebody else would have said, no, mate, you can't. Like, they were all in the hotel together.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, maybe it's his own room and maybe it wasn't told, or I don't know.
It wasn't just it. So,
No,
what do you
11
mean, like
barbarians. It was the 11 barbarians and Chris Robshaw went for dinner in a restaurant. That's why it got cancelled.
Chris Bob? No, Rob Shaw was representing the Barbarians.
Oh, was he? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Forget it then.
Yeah, he was in the Barbarian squad, and so was like Richard Wigglesworth was there. There was another Saracens player. So there's a few English players that were part of that. Yeah, I mean it was 12 of them, so it was a reasonable chunk.
Yeah.
But
do you think they weren't told, or they just ignored it?
they were absolutely told. They were in that bubble for a little while, so they knew the rules. I just think they thought, it's the day before the game. What's the worst that can happen? It's the night before. We'll sneak out. Everyone else is asleep. We'll have a few pints and we'll come back. And I get it. Like the Barbarians, I bet that's what's always happened on a Barbarians tour is a team bond. They maybe just didn't have a chance to bond, so they decided now's the opportunity. But I think it's just a bit of a brain fade.
It's a bit ridiculous, isn't it? Like you just think, like, what's the point? Like, really? Yeah, like if, I get that you want to go out and do stuff, but
yeah,
you're a professional with a job. You're not an amateur messing around on tour. Like, and you can always like. I'm sure they could have ordered in. I'm sure they could have got a pack of beers and some curry.
Oh yeah,
wanted to get. I'm sure they could have just got that ordered for them. Like
room service. Yeah,
right, to do something like that. And then if they all ended up hanging out in the same room or whatever,
it would have been fine. Yeah.
Right, but no, all we're gonna do is definitely go and break the rules. And then the sad thing about it is, like, all the staff that would have been called in for that game no longer got paid that weekend.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a couple of different factors if you think about it. You've got like grassroots, so anything below the Premiership aren't allowed to play at the moment. So you've got like obviously the Championship and below, which are more serious divisions. But even grassroots rugby, like my local club, they're not allowed to train or play together.
Yeah,
it's forbidden at the moment. I don't know really about training, but they're definitely not allowed to play. So the only rugby we've got, and we haven't had any in ages, is this, and then it's a warm up for England going into the Six Nations. You're like, we really haven't got much rugby.
No. Did you see France and Ireland?
Wales,
sorry.
Yeah, France was. Yeah. What a game!
It was a good game, and like how many ridiculous mistakes were there from both sides everywhere? Like they needed that warm up.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
I'm like, we're gonna get dicked by Italy.
Well, Ireland played Italy, so Italy have had a bit of a warm up. Yeah. Ireland did thrash them and look pretty good.
Yeah, but I think that warm up's going to make a huge difference. And Italy have gotten close to. Italy have never beaten England, but they've gotten close a couple of times. Yeah, and I reckon it's the type of thing that really throws you off. Like, well, hopefully we come out of it. Technically, we've got better players, right? On paper, everybody's better, but if you're out of practice, it's not like they can go, well, we missed this one game, but it's okay. We played the week before. You haven't played for months.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like as an England squad, obviously, they played in the Premiership or whatever, but. I don't know. I think it's a type of opportunity that opens the door to Italy. Italy, in their mind, going, we're going to be prepared for them, and they're not going to be prepared for us, and we can win this, and they'll have the belief that they can win.
Yeah,
and that will be more important than anything else.
I think what might happen is that England will still win, but the first half, unless England get off to a flyer, the first half will probably be really, really close. And it's possible Italy might even sneak the first half if you're saying like they're a bit more match ready than we are. So we might still win the game, I reckon. But what might really hurt us is we won't win it like 50-10 or 60-10, where we need a big points gap to make sure that if Ireland beat France, then it comes down to points, and Ireland just beat Italy like with like a 40-30. Well, I think it was a 30-point difference in the end because Italy scored at the end. Yeah. So England need that points gap. They don't just need to. If they beat Italy, then it comes down to points, and they need to make sure that they do a better job than Ireland did, and Ireland did a pretty decent job.
Yeah.
So.
And if France win,
I think if France winning, the win.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if Wales might be in it, but they've got Scotland.
I did read some post a while ago, and it was like some ridiculous scenario where basically anybody could win it, but like half of it, like some ridiculous things have to happen.
Yeah, which is why it was going to be like a great weekend back in like March.
Yeah.
And then it suddenly just got called off, and I was like, damn it, it was going to be a proper Super Sunday.
Yeah. It was like, that would have been really good. You kind of wish they'd just gone ahead with it. They'd just been like, yeah, let's do
it.
Yeah. How many are they having people in the stadium? They're not. Nobody's going to be allowed to be in there.
No, they were working up to it. I think Harlequins, at least here. Also, I don't know what the case is in Italy, because actually, if you look at it, when Championship Rugby resumed and the Champions Cup resumed, there was allowed 1,000 people or 10,000 people were allowed in the French stadiums, but there's still no fans allowed in our stadiums. They did a trial for a bit because the cases went back up. They had to pull the plug on it.
Yeah, here you have 5,000 people.
It's something like that.
I've been to 2 or 3 games this season for FCG.
Oh, have you? Okay. Yeah. And then commentators have been like questioning it. They're like, this doesn't look like 5,000 people. Like half the stadium's packed. It's like a 60,000 seater. What's going on? But
it was interesting, like, because normally when you have a game, sometimes you go to a game, right? Yeah. Quite in a reasonably large stadium, and they haven't filled the whole thing. Means they just block off like one side of the stadium's just not filled, and everybody's sat together in one corner, right?
Yeah.
So you can have that atmosphere. But where they're allowed 5,000 people, but nobody can sit next to each other.
Yeah.
So they have to spread them all out all over the place.
Yeah.
And so it was like this really weird, like it's like you're cheering, but it's like it's like everybody's really far away because they are. And so it's like, everybody cheering? Is it just me? What's going on?
Yeah.
In France, people go crazy for the instruments and things. So somebody's got a drum or trumpet things. So that was all right because you can hear that everywhere.
Yeah, good atmosphere.
Yeah. It was just a bit funny because it was like you feel like you're a million miles away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I also think I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but fans are a big part of home advantage. Whereas and you think about football, like the pitches are pristine. The weather conditions don't really come into it too much. Whereas like something like Exeter versus Twickenham, the 2 stadiums, Exeter is like quite an open stadium. It's really windy, and if you're not accustomed to the wind, it takes you a while to get used to it. And Exeter have obviously been playing in it, so they're pretty good at managing the wind. Whereas maybe at Twickenham, you don't get that level of wind, and therefore you're fine with it. Whereas football stadiums are so big, they're so well protected from outdoor elements, other than rain.
Yeah.
The pitches are the same. So with no fans, you think at the moment there's no such thing and no really huge excuse about away, other than the travel? Is there really a home advantage?
I mean, the crowd obviously play a big role in that, like home advantage, having somebody screaming for you, versus basically booing for you. Obviously makes a huge difference. But I think also the comfort level, like you probably slept in your own bed that night. Your wife is at the game with this, or your children. You're not away from them. You're not in a strange place where you like as simple things as like you go out to the shop and you're like, oh, I always eat. What is Well, it depends what you do. I mean, Usain Bolt always eats chicken nuggets, and you can get them anywhere. But like, if you have a specific, some people like to eat sweets before a game, right? And they're like, I'm going to buy these specific types of sweets, but they're not available because you're in a different country that don't have those available.
Sure. Yeah.
Or just little things like that. You might go to a restaurant and eat something that's just different to what you do, and it upsets your stomach a little bit.
Yeah.
You get to the thing, you're like, where you're having to think more about stuff like, where's the toilet? Where do I go for that? How do I like all these little things distract you from concentrating on what you've got to do for that day.
Yeah.
I know they have support staff to help them with stuff, but I think it's all those little things also add up into, it's much easier to be in a routine and perform at a high standard than it is to be out of routine and then try and immediately fall into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's why you see so many players have. Like Jamie George always goes and sits out in the stadium and watches it fill up.
That does he?
Yeah, he doesn't say anything. He gets changed early and goes out and watches the stadium fill up, and then he does something else or whatever, and it's always been a routine for him.
Really? All right.
Yeah, and I bet if somebody forced him to stop doing that, he'd play like crap.
Yeah. It's possible.
So many things that are like that, where it's like a There's a good book which I've not read for years, so I can't quote it exactly. It's called Making the Butterflies Fly in Formation.
Okay.
And it's basically saying, if you're performing at a high enough level and there's any kind of pressure involved, you are going to be nervous. There's no like, oh, don't be nervous. You're going to be like, that's just not a question anymore. So the question is, how do you perform at your best standard, even though you're nervous? And so it's like getting the butterflies to fly in formation, like making the fact that you're going to have nervousness come at a certain point be part of the routine, and that be a comfort for you. And having that mentality around things helps people psychologically go, oh, I'm nervous, that means this is important and I care, and that's a good thing. Rather than going, oh, I'm nervous and so now I'm going to make a mistake. Because that track in your brain is a really genuine thing. If you are too nervous, you go back, instead of performing a skill as you've learnt it, you actually go back to learning mode. Which is why you see like really high level athletes
make
totally
silly mistakes.
mess up a skill that you're like, even an amateur wouldn't do that. And the literal brain path, like the neurons firing, change to what you would expect somebody as a learner to do. They're not in like a direct line anymore. They suddenly bash all over the place.
Okay.
So you see, professionals miss a penalty by absolutely like not even close. Not just they've hit the post or something like that. Like miles. Like how have you possibly done that? And it's because their nervousness has got too much, and so now their brain's firing like an amateur, like somebody's learning a skill for the first time, and they can't remember. Their body's not remembering how to execute the skill. And so when you're performing at the top level, having 5 minutes of, you look the wrong way on the road and you almost get run over because the traffic's in the opposite direction, and it totally throws you off, and now you've got too much anxiety in your body, or all sorts of different things like that. I think it's that element that will affect you more than obviously if you're playing at home. And so therefore, no, it's not necessarily like it's going to be the end of the world as long as you can control those types of emotions, but you have more potential to be put off your game.
I guess that makes some sense. I generally take quite a, like, I get what you mean, that comfort from home. I really like it because it means, like, when we were leaving for home games, I know that it's a 10-minute drive. I know exactly where to go. I know exactly where to park. I know where my changing room is, roughly, because there's 7 changing rooms. We've got one of them, but at least I know where the 7 are. So I get what you mean, like that comfort of home advantage. I always found a way, as much as I didn't enjoy other people's pitches, especially if they weren't cared as well for, like Barnes Green, where it was like a 3-mile hike to the top of the mountain to play on this pitch that's on a slope, flooded completely, and the wind's blowing at like 1,000 miles an hour.
It's like they were, where's the worst place that we can play?
Where can we not attract players? But then because they were winning 15-0 in the first half, and then I came on in the second half. But the fact that their fans were cheering for them, they gave me because there was more of them, instead of pressurizing me, it gave me something. I need to shut them up. I need to go out there and try and work even harder to quieten down, because as soon as they get quiet, then I know that we're winning. And it's like I'm creating an enemy out of them, not in a literal sense, but in my mind. In my mind, they're the enemy, so I've got to go out there and play extra hard. And I quite liked the way, because that's your audience. I'm going to embarrass you in front of your audience. Or I used to do that with cricket as well.
I get it. It's it's an interesting one, because all the sports psychology things really interesting on how people deal with different things. The crux of most of it for anybody who's listening is you need to turn whatever is a negative into a positive. 98% of people do not perform better in a stressed condition. Some people do. There are a really small amount of people who perform better when they're ridiculously upset, angry, stressed. Rather than you can be angry, but you need to be energized by the anger instead of stressed by the anger. That makes sense.
Okay. I get it.
And so you always need to you need to be able to turn things like the opposition booing you into a positive of well, watch me shut you up, because now it's a positive, not a negative. Whereas if you were oh, they're booing, what a bunch of pricks, and now you're stressed about the situation, and it's going to affect you negatively.
Fair.
And just also going through a few different emotions could be quite useful when you're I think when you're learning, when you're coming up and you're not so sure of yourself. To realize on what kind of mental state you perform your best. because different people do perform differently. It was why you see some people are like calm, like Jamie George, like he's out there, he's calm, he's collected, he's getting involved with the atmosphere, and he's letting the energy of that build him up.
Yeah.
Whereas you'll see somebody else like Dylan Hartley who'll just get amped up like he's going to have a fight.
Yeah.
And then he probably will.
And he does.
Yeah. But it's that like the different mentalities. Like he wants to be amped up. Like he wants that kind of nervous energy almost like that. Like I've got to get something done.
Yeah.
Whereas that would put somebody else off. Like if they felt like that, they would not perform so well.
Yeah.
So I think figuring yourself out in that way, and then you can build your own triggers.
Yeah, makes sense.
It helps, and it helps way more at an amateur level than people think it would. Like, because I think it's one. It depends on the further you go up the chain, the more that has an impact. Because
for sure.
Like the skill set of like the top, say, 20 players in the world is obviously exceptionally different. But let's just say everybody else who's a professional player, they're roughly not that different in terms of their skills and ability. The only real difference is their mentality, their decision making.
Yeah.
But even at the amateur level, you think, if you think of all the players that we've ever played with or against, like how many of them were exceptionally skillful? Well, none, because if they were, they wouldn't play for our team. They would play for somebody better.
Level, yeah.
And so you still have at every level how your mentality can change things, which is how you can see certain coaches come into amateur or semi-professional teams and completely transform exactly the same squad of players. And the same you see at the professional level, because you can either upskill somebody physically or mentally.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just needs that mental like team cohesion to be a difference, and understanding triggers and what gets people fired up, what gets them in the right frame of mind to perform at the right level.
Yeah.
Can make a big difference.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There was a good study on that with basketball players practicing free throws, and they had one team practice with a specific soundtrack. Not that they were aware of it. And so every time they went and done free throw practice, a specific song would come on, and then another team would just have any song come on, and then another control had no music at all. And then when they tested them, and they made them all do free throwing, one with no music, one with random music, and then one with this specific track.
Yeah.
When all three performed, they were all like sort of about the same, because that's how they're supposed to be. But as soon as the specific track came on, the team who only performed to that track suddenly done loads better.
Really? Oh wow.
It was like they're really like focused, they're in tune, like they understand what the task is, they can remember things. I don't know, there was like a whole bunch of people like, well, we need to look into this. And now you see it all the time. People use music as triggers and cues constantly. You see it a lot in weightlifting. Yeah. Big, like the Chinese, they will have you perform a 1 rep max to a specific track. Every time you're going to go up to your 1 rep maximum, you might perform it to a specific track.
Oh, okay.
Or like make you perform something you are going to like do 100% and do it properly. Have it a specific
so it's
track.
kind of priming you when you hear that track to kind of get into game mode, I suppose. Yeah. Oh,
and then they listen to that, just before they walk out onto the platform.
That's quite clever. That's quite interesting. I mean, you get players nowadays only with like a team mantra or a team saying and something to just kind of get the team back. And some players will have their own little phrase that they say to themselves. You definitely see it in cricket where like a batsman will just want to go off into a silo and they'll walk away from the crease. They won't really pick a fight with the bowler, or they won't engage. Jack Callis was known for it, wasn't it? It was like he was just in a bubble that you just couldn't penetrate it at all. You can say what you like, do you like, he'll just walk away and he'll either be singing a tune in his head, chewing gum, or something like that, but he will not engage and let you disrupt him, which is why he has such a phenomenal career. I'm not saying it's why he had a phenomenal career, but
it'll be a fundamental part of how you can perform at that level.
Yeah.
How you can do it. It's interesting one. I always remember we was training at the Slade. I remember I was only young, 16 or something. Somebody told me about that type of thing of like to pick something to focus on, because I think because I could bat obviously pretty well, but not necessarily the greatest batsman ever, obviously, as well. So it was like I had my shots, but I was like focusing. I was always playing the wrong shot to the wrong type of delivery, even though I had the shots that I needed. And they were like, you're going to pick something that you focus on that clears your mind, play more instinctively. And so it was like always then from then on, it was always like, well, I'm just going to tell myself, watch the ball, watch the ball. So as soon as the ball is coming in, all I'm repeating in my head is watch the ball, 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 and not think about anything else.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I would think about, should have played this shot, should have played that shot, or look, and then it built into a whole routine where it was like I stand away from the thing and I look at the gaps, not the players.
Yeah.
So they're mentally in my mind of where the gaps are. Then I walk to the crease and tap the bat 3 times, not more, not less. And then I continuously repeat, watch the ball, watch the ball, watch the ball, watch the ball, watch the ball.
Right, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's quite cool. I didn't know you did that. Yeah. But this theory can backfire. So I could tell you exactly when it can backfire. So I obviously getting into rugby, I used to watch videos of players, like the international players and just like wingers scoring tries, just to kind of get an idea of if I ever find myself in that 1-on-1 situation or a 2-on-1, or how do I find a gap, and just kind of learning a little bit just before the start of a game. I'm one of those, if I see something enough, I'll do it instinctively. I won't even, like, I would never have practiced it, but because I've seen it enough times, I'll just do it. And so I saw a lot of John Olomu videos and him just running through people, not really around them. So I think you might remember this match where you were on the sidelines watching me and I had the ball and I'd beaten everyone. It was just me and the fullback, and I could have easily stepped the fullback. I'm 10 meters from the try line. I could have stepped the fullback, gone. And instead I decided to step into the fullback. And I did hit him down and I did knock him down because he was a lot smaller than I was. I'm just going to run through him and I can go under the posts rather than scoring over there in the corner. He just hit him. He did go down, but he still managed to cling on. He pulled it down just before the try line. Present the ball, and someone else. I think it was a wing prop that scored in the corner somewhere.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think I remember screaming at you. I can't remember exactly what I screamed. You idiot.
Something along the lines of that. Because at that point, I hadn't scored my first rugby try. I haven't scored a try ever in rugby.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would have been my first try, and it's clear I had the entire try line, the width of the try line.
It would have been fine. You could have outrun him. It would have been all right.
He was slightly to my left, but he was coming from the goalpost, so I was slightly to the right of the goalposts. So I could have just gone to the corner, scored. It was 10 meters. Even if he did catch me, my momentum would have taken him because I'm going away from him.
Yeah.
But no, I kind of stepped into him because I just saw videos of John Olomu and I just thought, I'll just go straight through him.
Yeah, but when you're like 120 kilos.
In my head, it was the same difference. It was the same ratio. But no, he managed to hold on. He did well. But he stopped me. He didn't stop the try in the end for the team, so it didn't cost us. But
He almost did.
I almost did. Yeah, I ran straight into him. So watch the right things or watch suitable things. If you are John Olomu or built like John Olomu, fine.
Yeah.
If you're me, you've not scored a try yet. Rugby's completely new to you. Maybe don't do what Jonah does.
Yeah. There's some good like schoolboy footage of him where he's playing. I think they put him in at like 7 or 8. I think he's in the forwards. He's not on the wing. And they pass. I think they win something like 103-0 or something stupid. Yeah. And their only strategy is like give him the ball and he'll just run straight down the middle of the pitch and score.
That's fair enough.
It's just like bash, because he's like 15 years old and he already weighs over 100 kilos.
Yeah.
And like that wasn't common even at a professional level at that point. Like, not for 15-year-old boys to be running around at that kind of muscular. You could see him like he's just there, massive like this, like no neck or anything. And the else is like, what is that guy on?
Yeah. Are you sure he's our age?
Yeah. This is the under 16s, not the under like 26s.
This is not the old boys team.
Yeah.
So you think about that. Do you want shouldn't John Olomu, why did he play at the wing? Just because he was fast? Or could he have been a better centre? Should have been a back rower?
I think
why a winger? Because that's just so unusual for a guy his size. And he was the first, and he's paved the way for other big blokes now. So you see them quite often on the wing now.
Yeah.
But who would have thought back then that, let's put the big guy on the wing?
Yeah, I would say, if I had to guess, because I certainly don't know. I'm sure there's probably some good interviews with him, but I would have to say probably on that speed, right? Like if you've got that amount of pace, and he can finish is the thing. Like he was very good at finishing and getting over the line and making that difference of like, I know there's only like a meter to go and it doesn't matter if there's 3 men trying to tackle me, I'm going to get that meter.
Yeah, okay.
Rather than he's like just taking it to ground or whatever. And then coupled with the speed, like it really set him apart.
Yeah.
And I suppose if he was going to be a forward, I suppose he could have maintained the speed and some other stuff, but you don't give yourself the best opportunity to maximize your speed potential if you're not playing on the wing.
Sure.
Because that's where you're going to have the most amount of space to run.
Yeah.
So like that's why you put your quickest men out there, and the guys who are the best at finishing tries
go out there. Yeah.
You see it less at an amateur level, obviously, because the ball just never makes it out there because of a bloody knock on.
Yeah. By the second phase, there's a knock on. Yeah.
Yeah. But certainly at a more serious level, it gets out to the wing when you're wanting to finish that off.
Yeah.
And create that speed. I think if he was slower, they would have. With his strength, he would have stayed probably either in the forwards or the centres.
Yeah.
Way more sense. But considering he was so quick, it's like, well, let's put him out there. And he's going to be unopposed. Like, you're like, well, you're as quick as any winger, if not quicker, but you're also 30 kilos heavier than all of them.
All of the wingers, yeah.
So, I suppose at some point they probably tried it out and went, you know what, this could be a good idea. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. If it was an experiment, it definitely paid off.
Yeah.
But, I mean, so I guess it kind of brings us nicely to the purpose of this chat, really. And hopefully when Callum joins us, we can hear about his, assuming he logs on, is how to kind of choose your best position, which is, I mean, I was chucked on the wing because I was completely new to rugby. And I seem to be where I think most teams will put most new players, just sit on the wing. Like you said, at the amateur level, it's not as busy and you do get a chance to kind of just feel your way into the match and observe a little bit, and a chance might come and you get to, do a 5 meter try.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel really good about yourself. Not that I ever did that.
Yeah.
But then I moved from that straight. So my nature, so I guess it's kind of your nature versus your ability. That is the question. So my nature, coming back from cricket and having played at a pretty decent level, and wanting to learn every part of it and constantly being involved in the game because I just enjoyed it so much. Same with rugby. I didn't mind being out in the wings, but I also found it a bit boring and tiresome. I was like, I'm not influencing the game in any way. I could help the team more if I was more involved. So when there was a chance to play hooker, we didn't have a hooker, and they said, well, why don't you come in here? Well, they didn't say why. I said, I'll do it.
Yeah.
They kind of laughed. They looked at me and they went, not sure. He's played 6 games, never played rugby before. Should we put him as a hooker? When other players that weren't there found out, they laughed their heads off.
Yeah.
But we did it in training and it kind of was okay. It wasn't too bad. And then I played the rest of the season there because it worked.
Yeah.
But obviously the pain and stress. But I liked being more involved in the game. You're involved in every scrum. Line outs, you're the one throwing it in. You're carrying way more than you are at the wing. So it's good from that point of view. But I definitely didn't have the absolute technique for it. And I don't know how much I did cost the team or didn't cost the team. Maybe I was okay.
Yeah.
But then I felt I wasn't able to run or step with the ball as much because I was constantly running into contact.
Yeah, you've got no space to do something fancy.
Exactly. And I really liked, so my personal view was when I used to look at rugby, I really like 13.
Yeah.
Because he's in the backs plays, he's got a role to play in every one. He either runs a hard line or he runs a hard line in, or he does a switch with someone. So he's always involved.
Yeah.
But he's a bit of a playmaker because he can decide that final or he can cut in. So he's involved in every back play and there's enough space to do something. I'm not rapid, but I've got enough speed that I don't think I should be in the forwards. And I did play a few games and I really enjoyed it. So now when I go play for a new club because we've moved, in my head I'm like, well, I could go on the wing because that's where I've played a fair bit and I won't suck for the team because I can suck out there and it won't impact them. I could go play hooker, but then I'm not that seasoned as a hooker. Yeah, and I'll need time training because as soon as they see me throw into the lineup, they'll be like, I don't think he's a hooker. They'll know straight away. Well, I'm scrummaging, I might get away with it.
So did you hear hooker? I said 13.
But 13 is where I enjoy most, but I know that's an important position. So it's my experience. So kind of if I had to choose there, where does my, I suppose, physique recommend most? I guess that's the question. There he is. He's joined. Can you hear us? Hello, mate. You all right?
Yeah, good. Thanks yourself.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I don't think you've met Tom.
No, I didn't know.
No.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So Tom's the guy that got me into rugby to begin with. He persuaded persuaded me to put down the cricket bat and pick up the egg-shaped ball. So yeah, you got to blame him.
Yeah.
For all of it. And for those of you that don't know, Callum is the first athlete, and we got really lucky to sponsor him. Do you know the story? Do you know why it happened?
Through my father ordering balls.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, so the reason, obviously, the brand launched because rugby balls were way too expensive. Like you buy a Gilbert ball, like a good one, and it costs you 40, 50 quid. So I designed my own. I was like, well, why don't I put these out for a lot cheaper and I can give you the better quality. Anyway, he was our first customer ever. And I asked him, just out of curiosity, who's it you bought it for? And if it was a club, then I was like, oh, I could donate some more balls. But he said he bought it for you. And that was it. I was like, well, in that case, because I think you were 12 or 13 at the time.
Yeah, I was young, yeah.
Yeah. And who were you playing for?
My district team that time, I think, because I was trying to practice throwing in hooker.
Yeah, because we've got some videos of you, or pictures of you in the hoodie as well.
Oh, that was in, I seen them photos a couple of weeks back. That was in my youth, my first year youth, I think.
Oh, okay, fine. So that was a little bit later.
Yeah.
Cool. But then who knows that, or who knew that you would then go on to represent Wales? Yeah, done really well. Make me look really good. Talent scout. Yeah. I can pick them.
Pick them through me email, mate. I don't even need to watch a game.
That's it. So, how you doing, man? Have you played any rugby since March, or since that game we came to watch? The absolute smashing, cracking game.
Yeah, we played Scotland after that game. You can watch the English game.
Oh yeah.
And I haven't been a couple of training sessions.
Yeah.
Limited to what we can do because of COVID, but nothing.
You haven't been back since. What about training?
No sign of going back.
No.
No one knows what's happening. It's all up in the air.
Really? All right. Are you allowed to train as a club?
Yeah, we're allowed. Before Wales went in lockdown for 2 weeks, we were allowed to train. Just the most we could do was touch rugby, no contact, nothing. Okay. Well, we've got Wales in lockdown now, so it's all stopped for another 2 weeks.
Oh, just as you got back into it.
Yeah. But what's happening?
So Tom and I were just having a chat now about kind of finding your best position, and I guess there's probably no one better to talk about it than someone that's played it at a much higher level than both of us. Yeah. So I was just telling Tom that I got into rugby, and I got into it when I was 23, and I got chucked on the wing, because that's where you put every new guy. You just go stand on the wing and just watch and have a bit of fun.
Plus, he had the quiff, so it was like, he'll be fine over there. There's no way you were putting him in the pack, right? Too much hair gel, the ball all greasy.
Yeah. I think I was playing Shoreham. This is when I moved literally from the wing to hooker, and the opposition guy literally just he lined up, obviously got into position, his props got into place, he looked up at me and went, "Nah, you're too pretty for this, mate." I was like, I don't know what to say. Don't know if that's an insult or not. But yeah, so obviously training with Tom is it's been around and helped me with my training for quite some time. He's quite knowledgeable. And so I moved into hooker because at the time we were doing quite a powerlifting heavy routine and training for about a good year and a half. So decent enough strength to go play hooker. And it was good fun. It was a nightmare trying to throw into a line because I just didn't know how. Yeah. And I did not know how to time it. I could throw a cricket ball perfectly, but I did not know how to throw a rugby ball. So I'm like, come on, you got to jump so I can hit you. And it's like, no, throw it first. I'm like, how does this work? I don't know where you're going to jump to. But so you're going to have to maybe teach me one day.
Yeah.
Then I moved out to play 13. So I played a few different positions. And I think 13 is maybe where I enjoy it the most. But am I the most suited for it? I don't know. So I guess kind of over to you as someone who's in a few different positions.
You can see it in quite a few different ways where if you're determined you want to play in a certain position, you can be stubborn and say, no, I'm gonna be the best at this position as I can and improve that position. Because if you go and if you say, someone says, oh, can you play this position or can you cover both? Then you're practicing two positions where you're not actually getting the best of yourself in one position. So you on your mind, you're thinking, oh, I got to do two positions. Yeah. Where if you just concentrate on one position, you could nail that training to get all them skills right.
Yeah.
But then if you look at it where if you're in a squad and they need you, like, to play two different positions, there's a chance they could pick you over other people just because you can cover different positions.
Yeah.
So, example for that is Josh Turnbull of Wales. Last couple of years, he's been in the Welsh setup for the Six Nations stuff. I'm sure he hasn't played the game, but he's been that player that can cover back row, second row, where if they need, because they're only limited amount of players they can have, he can cover everywhere. And it's not saying that he's like he hasn't played because he's not a good enough player. He's obviously great enough to be an international player, but because he can cover everywhere. But then he's competing against back rowers and second rowers that's played in their position for years, do it week in, week out, know exactly what they need to do, like smash that.
Yeah.
So then it's tough then. But then you look at someone like James Hook, who's played years for Wales, had something like 80 caps. He's played 10, 12, 15, and it's kind of worked out for him because, well, it just shows his success.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. So you've played hooker, but I also know that you played loose head for your club. So have you represented Wales on both positions, or do you just play hooker for Wales?
Just played loose head for Wales.
Oh, you just play loose head for Wales. Oh, you don't play hooker for Wales. Okay.
No.
All right. But you started in.
I started playing hooker for Scarlets in the 16s, which went on to Scarlets 18s.
Yeah.
And that's where I got picked up in a mini tournament by the Welsh and 18s coaches.
Yeah.
Which basically said if you convert to being a prop, there's like you have potential to become a cap.
Okay.
So basically, in that situation, they've just said that there's no chance of becoming a cap. I'm gonna have to lose. So I thought, I'm gonna shift over. Speaking to a couple of semi-pro clubs around me, they said after all this passes and you get your opportunity to have caps, you can go back hooker if you want. So that's basically what I've done now. After Wales 20s international program, I've got converted back to hooker now.
Okay. How did you find that transition? Because I suppose amateur people are just going to look at it and go, front row is pretty much all the same, right?
Yeah. So I playing for Scala 18s when I was playing hooker, I was about 98 kilos. I didn't really take on the best approach because over it was, I think, November or December, I got told to go prop. So over Christmas, I put about 12, 15 kilos on. So you can imagine.
All muscle, right?
Yeah. I wasn't in great shape, but my was atrocious. So I turned up training and I was nowhere near. But coming back down from being like, the higher you go, the more you realise the difference in the front row.
Yeah.
Because props, you get two big blokes basically, and hookers these days basically stand on the wing and they're like extra wingers, and so the higher you go, you realise the actual difference between the front rowers. Yeah. And coming back from prop to hooker, because I put all our weight on when I had to shift it off then, and it's just been mental.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I was like 16, I just moved into the men's team instead of like the youth team. And I'd been playing about 3 years or something like that, so I knew what I was doing, and I was playing 9. And go to my first training session for the men's team, and captain looked at me and he was like, "You either need to invest in some pads or some pies." I think I weighed like 45 kilos if I was soaking wet. Like, I was like, "Oh, cheers, mate." I'm like, I eat a stupid amount of calories. I better get some pads.
So do you find that having now shed a lot of that weight, because you've been training quite hard over the last 6 to 8 months, do you think like not having that fat and that extra weight is going to make you a better hooker? But would that have made you a better prop, or actually does that weight help as a prop, even if it's fat mass, not really muscle mass?
When it comes to scrummaging and stuff, you can have all the technique, but if you're coming against someone who's about 20 kilos heavier, it's not going to go your way, is it?
Yeah, okay.
So whatever weight you got, even though like the highest standards would say it's got to be muscle, but any weight really is gonna. It's the way because I put so much weight on, bad weight, I put fat on. My game had gone out the window, so I had my district coaches telling me and stuff like, you're not the player you used to be. Like when we were picking up, because I couldn't run as quick. My ball skills had gone, so I was just bulky. I was stiff.
Fat hands. You can't catch the ball.
Yeah. So no, if I went on the field, I reckon I'd be 10 times a better player, really, because my speed would go better, my fitness, my ball skills, everything. So it is important to have the right muscle, the right weight.
Yeah.
Because some boys are probably the same weight as me. Well, when I was playing prop, and about 15% body fat less, or 10% body fat less. So they could carry better, couldn't they?
Yeah, a better engine on them, I guess.
Yeah. It is a funny balance, because if you think, let's say everybody's got perfect technique, but obviously they haven't, so that is obviously an element. But if you take that out of the equation, you think, one guy's pushing, 200 kilos, the other guy's pushing 205 kilos, but this guy weighs 30 kilos more, he's going to win.
Yeah.
Because the maths just works out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's one of those where you've got to balance it out, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But how important is it in the scrum then to let your back rower know that this guy's going to be bigger, I'm going to need more effort from you? Or do you say, no, that's not really his primary job. His primary job is to spread out and pin the opposition player?
The lower leagues, that's what the problem is, where you not only the front row get taught out of scrimmage, basically. So it's the front row job.
Yeah.
But as you train like higher standard, like everyone gets coached out of scrimmage. Okay. So you got like back row of 7 scrimmage against get props and stuff, just get the technique right.
Yeah.
And like I've been in meetings where maybe I've gone backwards in the scrum and the coach has given the 7 the ball again because he's the scrum too early. So, like, it's important for like the back 5 can make the front row look silly, basically, because if they're thinking about other jobs before the scrum, and they're not putting all their weight into it, then you got no chance. Otherwise, you're just scrumming against 8 boys, the opposition.
Yeah. I guess it's then more of a team.
Yeah.
Team scrummage there at the level. So I guess $1 million question. Now that you've played for Wales in a slightly different position to what you've, I suppose, grown up playing, the question is, do you recommend a young kid that's maybe 12, 13 now to play the position that Wales would need him to play? Or would you say, actually, no, you're better off sticking to your art and maybe waiting a little bit longer, but then at least you might get selected in the starting 15 because you are that specialist position that we need in that role?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't have an option basically, because the way they said you move over, you can have a cap. Well, that was to me was give up hooker because you're not going to have a hooker cap because they just didn't see it and go over. So it was a no-brainer for me. It was what other 18-year-olds going to say? Oh, I can't be asked to have a cap because
true,
because I don't want to play it. So it was a no-brainer for me. But it depends how confident the player is. Okay. If there's a young player thinking I'm either really good at the position, or I know how to get better, or is like willing to put all the effort in to get better, then all for it. Stay in your position, make your position your main thing, and know exactly what you're doing and be the expert in that position.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But then there is more of an option to be part of a team where if you can play other positions, you might not get the game time, but if a coach needs someone that can cover three positions and he's going against someone that can only do one position, maybe the bloke that's going to cover 3 positions might get their heads first.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm not sure with you in England, but us with Wales now, there's from Division 1 down, so I think it's the 3rd division in all of Wales, you're only allowed 5 subs. So most teams carry 2 front rowers, so you have like a hooker and a prop, and then a back rower and whatever.
Yeah.
So then what they're looking for then is maybe a prop that can play 2 positions.
Yeah, makes sense.
And because you can only carry 5 subs, well, if you can't cover 2 positions, if there's someone that can cover 2 positions, is going to get picked in front of you, kind of thing. So depends what situation you're in, really. Yeah. How confident you are in nailing your role and your position.
I would go from the viewpoint of perhaps more like the opportunity, I would switch. I would recommend to switch if you've got you had the opportunity to switch and get a cap, because it's actually less about the cap. Obviously, that's a very proud moment for yourself, and like that's a great thing.
Yeah.
But also, you get when you're in that setup, you now have totally different exposure to the mentality of the game, the standard of training. When you go back to your previous club, having trained with the national team, you can probably see the difference in like the standard. You can see that gap. So even if you done it in not quite your position, and even when you want to play in the men's team, well, I'm going to be a hooker for the actual men's team for Wales, or I'm not going to play at all. But just having that exposure to the squad, make those contacts, understand what it takes to compete at that level, I think it's well worth it. Even if you spend the entire time on the bench, just be around that camp.
That's a good point, actually. Because you still get the training, the experience, facilities, the SSC coaches, everything.
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
Yeah, think about how much knowledge you now have on how to train yourself during this lockdown period.
Yeah.
Or everybody else who didn't go to that training camp is like, what am I going to do by myself? How am I going to train? Because they didn't have that exposure, or perhaps they don't have the contacts as well. You can text those people now and be like, well, I'm in lockdown. What are you doing?
Yeah, definitely.
Are you training? And it's not just about networks, but that can go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I guess you play against better opposition as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're playing against the best under 20s in England and Scotland and in Ireland and France. So I guess that in itself will improve your game. So I can kind of see the point of it. I guess it's one of those where we'll all love to, as fans. I mean, if someone said, "Do you want to go sit on the bench but be part of the England squad?" I'd be like, "Yep." I'd be scared, scared out of my mind, just looking at the opposition wingers, going, "I'll stay here." Yeah.
You go.
You go get your cap. You go get your.
Water? Anybody water?
Just gonna clean the mud off my boots. Someone else go. So I can see like that kind of the enticement of wanting to play for your country, but then again, I guess the argument is, do you want to play for them or do you want to continue to play for them? And if let's say you got selected as hooker and then you were one of two hookers and you were the primary one, you'd get all the game time. So I guess it's kind of that is a risk, but the reward to ratio, I guess. Yeah.
How did you pick your position in the first instance? I think that's a interesting. Like how day one when you turned up.
In what, through my junior rugby or?
Wide hooker.
Yeah.
I think it was going through I only started playing when it was contact. I didn't play when it was touch. So I turned up not really knowing what I was like playing rugby.
Yep.
And back then I was probably the same height back then as I am now. So I haven't grown much. So I was a lot bigger than other kids back then. So I was quite a good player back then. So I used to run a lot. And then going through my age grades, like I had good ball skills, fast, but I had a bit of a belly on me. So basically, it was either put more weight on to go prop, stay hooker, or maybe go centre. And
trim down.
I knew the centre wasn't an option. Centre was out the window before even thinking about it. So that's just how it came about, actually. Yeah.
Was that like too much?
Was that like an instinctive thing? Like, no, I don't want to play that position. It's not interesting for me. I like eating.
And I just knew being sick, having a six pack and stuff, just wasn't for me either. I think.
There's what's this? Zavinis Savickas. I can never say his name. World's strongest man. Well, greatest strong man of all time.
Oh yeah.
Somebody interviewed him once because lots of these strongmen were now turning up with abs and things like that, and we were a bit more mobile, and some of the competitions and things were changing to favour athletes who were a bit quicker and more mobile. And they were like, "Are you going to trim down and get some abs?" And he was like, "Why would you have abs when you can have the power belly?" Yes, I like that. I'm not fat. I've got a power belly.
So you mentioned earlier that obviously being in that setup and being around those coaches and training, is there a huge difference between playing for your district and then playing for the under-20s in Wales? Because obviously you're playing against adults in one, you're playing against under-20s. Is it still a step up, or is it like a different step but lateral? Because you're still playing against relatively inexperienced players.
Yeah, it's the training process and stuff is mentally different, where you get time slots, and if you're late, it's not good. And so you get slots of like gym, fitness, rugby skills, all that, physio slots. So like that aspect of it is just immense.
Yeah.
Physicality side of it is playing semi-pro and playing for 20s. I reckon semi-pro, like you said, because I was playing against men, was much tougher because they're bigger men, stronger men, older blokes, streetwise. And then you go and play against 20s, which are all athletes, and so like you don't get that. Maybe they won't just run into you flat out with their head down, which won't hurt as much as some 30-year-old.
Will do. He's a bricklayer and he doesn't care because you're not a brick wall.
Yeah.
He's just coming into you.
Exactly. So you get that aspect of the physicality, but then like focus wise and skill wise is mental difference.
Okay. That makes sense.
I think that's the exposure that's more worth it than anything else.
Yeah.
To be around that professionalism and understand what it takes to be a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Like, and what kind of dedication you might need. Like that, like you need to turn up to training on time. Like now you're going to carry that with you when you go and you play for your team. You're like, I'm going to the gym at 4:00 today. That means you're turning up to the gym at 4:00, not 4:05.
Yeah.
Like, and you're going to put the work up, and you're going to create your own self-discipline. Self-discipline normally separates people from making it from amateur, semi-professional to actually being a professional. Is your own self-discipline.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the most important thing for me as well, because after the 20s, I didn't get an academy contract or anything. So basically, my professional rugby is a bit in a distance. Like it might not happen. I don't think it will happen. But the fact that I've had all that training and stuff with, like I get getting coached by Gethin Jenkins, Richard Fussell, like professional players. So I had that experience, but then I can bring that back to my club, my local club.
Yeah.
And try and help like my mates and stuff just become better players themselves. So it's just giving back as well, because I've had the experience and then just bring it back in a positive way to help other people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a nice point as well. Like you can really, up the standard of everybody around you now. You can be like, this is how these boys are doing it, and they're the best in the country. Let's try and replicate some of that.
Yeah, exactly.
How receptive are the players to that? Because obviously you've gone stepped up, you've got that extra level of professionalism. Is that something they're like, yeah, but you're better than us, so you are more professional? Or are they really, really receptive and like, no, Callum knows all this stuff, we better learn from him?
Yeah, it's mixed. Some people, because I'm younger, maybe they'd be like, whatever. Yeah. But then some people appreciate the fact that I'm not there just to like show off kind of thing. It's just I genuinely want to help other people because I've had that given to me, so why not pass it on as well?
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. Yeah, something you mentioned, the lots of like training sessions. So Tom mentioned in an earlier podcast that like once you get to like the absolute elite level, and it was part of his degree, I think, that these professional players are having multiple sessions a day. So something like a physio session, a strength training session, and a skill session. You could have 2 or 3 of those in a day. Is that what it was like with the under 20s, or is it still no? You have one thing once a day, and that's it.
No, so because we were training in the Vale Glamorgan where Welsh seniors trained, they train in the morning to afternoon, then we train afternoon to evening. So we turn up about 1:30, 2 o'clock. You just turn up to monitor, so you just go on the computer, say what you're feeling, what mood you're in, any aches or anything. From that time till 4 o'clock, you get all your physio appointments. Everyone just chill really, and then just do your physio and stuff. From about 4 o'clock, you have your team meeting, and then 4:30, backs and forwards split. So maybe one forwards be in the gym, backs will be doing skills, and then do that for an hour, have half-hour break, swap around, do another session or an hour, and then half-hour break, and then you'll have a team session for about an hour and a half.
Whoa.
So you're there for about 6-7 hours.
With about 3 or 4 hours of training in that.
Yeah. You're there for a while, but the amount you're there for, you're only actually training about half of it. So
yeah, but that's when you start getting up to more serious standards. Professional teams will train like 14 times a week.
Yeah.
Like if you include and some of those training sessions are obviously extremely light. They're just perhaps going for a run and doing some skills drills and things like, it's not hardcore like trying to kill yourself in every session, but you're turning up and putting in the work. There's, it's funny. You've seen that what's it called, Preparing with the Hurricanes or Training with the Hurricanes or something like that. It was like a limited series, about 6 episodes or so. It might be a little bit less, maybe like 4, but it's their like build up to the first game of the season, and they do like a 3-hour training session before the game of like running through drills and line outs and all sorts of things. I'd be dead by the end of that. Now they're going to go and play a game.
I get tired doing touch just before the match.
Yeah.
So I go stand on the wing during touch. I'm like, I'll run up and down once or twice, but start to pull a cramp if I do any more. As soon as I take contact, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
So raising, has that, because I would call that raising your general physical preparedness, right? You can just now take on more work.
Yeah.
Between 22 and 25, something like that. I mean, I worked at a gym, right? But I still played rugby and I'd done powerlifting and things. So I used to do Olympic lifting in the morning because my technique sucked. It was basically like cardio rather than weightlifting. And then I would do powerlifting in the evening. But when I worked in the gym, I would teach spin classes 2 or 3 times during the day. And it's like, think about that now, or the amount of work that is. I'm like, I'm surprised I wasn't dead. But you weren't, because you built up to it. Like it wasn't, I didn't do all of that on day one, type of thing.
Your body adapted to it.
Yeah. So did you take a lot of that away from perhaps that training camp? Do you come back and go, actually, my level of work capacity is now risen? And have you continued that, or maybe you've never thought about that? I don't know.
My first camp with Wales 18s, we were training on the artificial grass, and I just put on about 15 kilos, hadn't run much, and the intensity was mental. These, like the boys I was with, they were all in academies and stuff, so they've been training for months like that. Yeah. I stepped in, having shin splints, my ankles are going, everything. But then, like you said, as you get on, then your body adapts, and mentally as well, you know where you're gonna have to be. But yeah, coming out of the Six Nations, I think because I've had to lose so much weight, I think my exercise and stuff throughout the day is my volume of training compared to like when during the Six Nations you do so you do like a hard scrum session or something and line-out session once a week, say. So if you say like, it's not that much, because the other 3 days it's just technical stuff and just getting better stuff. But now I'm training about 2-3 times a day, high hit training. So I think, but that's definitely put me on a steady step coming out of there, knowing that like this is what you should be training, this is what you could be training, and them SSC coaches know not to push you and stuff. So it's put me on a steady step now going forward.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's funny. I think it's always interesting to speak to people who've gone through things like that, and like what they do. Like if you tracked your day now, how much output you have, or what you do in your training, to somebody else, they'd be like, "Oh, you're overtraining."
Yeah.
You're overtraining. You're just undertrained. You're not.
Yeah.
You're just not ready for that level of work.
Yeah. You're build up to it, and then you can be pretty much ready for anything, right? Like. If you think if you make it to a professional standard, you're going to double your work capacity that you're doing now.
Yeah.
And your current work capacity seems like a ridiculous amount in comparison to other people who are doing like 4 training sessions in a whole week. It's like, how do you go from 4 training sessions a week to 2 or 3 a day?
Yeah.
That's insane, isn't it? So when you hear like clubs like my club maybe train once a week, or do the Tuesday, Thursday, do you just kind of look at it and go, you're not going to learn nothing?
No, because I've been brought up just training Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah.
I was in an academy for years and stuff, so Wales 18s and 20s was just like a period for me. So that's all I've known is training Tuesday and Thursday. So I quite like it, because when you're in an amateur league, like you don't get paid for it.
Yeah.
Playing Tuesday and Thursday is just enough. If these boys want to come home from work, did it 9, 10, 12-hour shift, they go in for 2 hours more than twice a week. It's just going to drain them, and we got a problem of getting numbers out anyway all across Wales. So if that happened, it'd just be nightmare.
You'd lose players. Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah.
I always find that an interesting one, actually, when you've got that, because people do say that, like, I can't possibly come to, from work to this and then do that multiple times a week. But you'll have the same guy who has an office job and sits at a desk all day says the same thing as the bricklayer.
Yeah.
And it's like, you sat at a desk all day. What do you mean you can't turn up and do a bit of activity in the evening? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I understand where he's coming from. It's really tiring sitting at a desk all day. High intensity sitting.
And my hip flexors are trapped like hell. So
that's it. Yeah, I'm stiff as a board because I sit on my butt all day. So I guess with the weekend coming up, big important question is, do you reckon Wales have got it? Scotland look good?
Yeah, my heart's saying yes. My head's saying 50-50.
Yeah.
The way we went through last Six Nations, the way we played last week, I'm not taking anything away from France last week because they've just gone to an outstanding team. But so there's something not clicking yet with Wales, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's difficult. Vakatawa, like, he's something else, isn't he?
He's insane.
He's mental.
I'm like, he's actually like world apart from the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Like, he's the best thing to ever happen to France for the last like decade, which takes away from a lot of people who've got a lot of respect, but he's really world class. Like, if he continues doing what he's doing currently and this isn't just a peak, he'll go down as like one of the best ever.
Yeah, definitely.
Him and Dupont.
Oh, yeah.
He's got to be the best 9 in the world, surely. Yeah.
Well, Faf de Klerk will probably have something to say to that just because he knows.
Faf de Klerk's just a cheat.
Yeah.
He's just a really good cheat. He gets away with everything.
It just reminds me of how I used to play. You're like the tiniest man on the pitch and you just run around pissing everybody off.
Right. I fired up a screen share. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Oh, this is exciting.
So I thought with Callum on, we'd end up, because he said he'll stick around for half an hour. We've kept him on for a bit longer. So it's very kind to do that. End up on a better note for him. So this is something we've seen Gareth talking about 9s. Is it Gareth Davies is the 9? Yeah. He's changed now. Reece Webb's back, right? Or is he not still available?
Yeah.
He's back. So Gareth Davies, right? He's done this loads of times. It's almost becoming a bit of a trademark where he intercepts this pass. Now, I suppose there's 2 players who are way better than I am. One, why is he able to do this all the time? Because I look at this and I go, why is a 9 that your first 4 defenders, he seems to be out of place. Surely your first 4 defenders should be forwards and big guys. So A, why is he in the wrong place, or is he not in the wrong place? And then B, why is he always able to steal the ball? What does he do that other 9s don't do? So I'll quickly play it so you can have a look and then let me know if you want me to go back to anything. But there. So I'll just go back a bit more and then I'll just play it through. So he's there. Why is he able to do that?
I think it's just his knowledge of the game, and because he's a 9 himself, he knows exactly when that ball's out. So he's probably analysed that 9 throughout the week. He knows how long that 9's going to take from the base.
Yeah.
And he's really quick player, and it's just his knowledge of when the ball's out. Sometimes he might get penalised for being offside.
Yeah.
But most of the times he gets away with it, and he's world class at it.
He pulls it off every time, but I guess so. He's already gone. Look at his positioning here. I don't know how well you can see the screen.
Yeah.
But he already looks like he's out the blocks.
Yeah.
But if he pulls out here, surely he's leaving a big gap. So is that a risk that he's taking, or is he not? Because
I don't know if it's him personally putting himself there, or he's been coached to, like, his defence coaches put him there. But and a couple of times it has happened to him where it's either the receiver's popped it back inside, or it hasn't gone to the receiver, it's gone out the back, and then it does make a dog leg. So it's a risk.
Okay.
But the amount of times he's got away with it and it's paid off, it seems to be a risk worth taking.
Yeah, so there you go. So he's actually pinched it. So you're saying that this is probably something the defense coach that they as a team work on, is to let him do this?
Yeah, possibly. Or it's just him bossing the forwards and saying, I ain't going here, because he's in his head, he's going to take that ball.
Okay, cool.
Wants to go and steal that candy.
Yeah. I'm sure he done it against Australia last in the World Cup.
Yeah, he did. Yep. On the left wing, right?
Yeah. And then you look at that and like you're playing against a world-class team and you got the nerve to do that. So it just shows how confident he is and how it's going to work.
Yeah.
Some people just are very naturally able to read the game, read movement patterns, and they just seem to have a bit of a almost like a sixth sense of what's happening, what's going on around them. Yep. And like you mentioned, like it's one way he does know that opposition's what he's going to do. To watch footage, he would have seen that he's his opposite number, so he's very aware of like what he would do in that situation and stuff like that.
Yep.
And yeah, he's probably I would reckon he's had a serious conversation with the defense coach, be like, rather than being sat behind the ruck, kind of coordinating or like a floating, because that's what normally what 9 does, is you kind of like float behind that defensive line a bit.
Yeah.
Like instead of doing that, why don't we put me in and running forward? But we need everybody to realize that I'm breaking the line, and so therefore they've got to cover that gap. And as long as you have that kind of communication, because you see this people try and do that at an amateur level. What happens is instead of having that line where one man runs forward and everybody else keeps a line, you'll have the second guy move forward with him going, oh, we rushing now? What are we doing? Yeah. And then it creates a huge gap and it doesn't work and it's like horrible and it's a disgrace. But if you've worked with the team, everybody knows what's going on. It's like he's going to try and snipe the ball at least 10 times in a game because once in every 3 matches it comes up and wins the game. And realistically, him floating behind it, he's never going to put in any tackles there anyway. Then screw it, let's do it, type of thing. If you've got somebody with that kind of vision, like it's worth that.
Yeah, like you said, if all the defensive lines bought into it, then the 2 boys next door to him know that maybe they'll have to shuffle in if he doesn't catch it. So maybe they must be on the same wavelength and know they got to adapt if it doesn't go to plan.
Yeah. Not just run with him.
Yeah. Stop and admire his work.
Yeah.
So if you're in the defensive line and as a forward and you suddenly see, Gareth Davies just bolts for it, do you just go stand still and just block the gap, or do you still want to be moving up with him?
Yeah, you still want to
put a dominant hit.
Yeah. If you stop and then they get a tip on and then they run at you, then you're on your back foot. So you still want to be moving up. Yeah.
Okay.
Still move up. It's just don't be like, because when you're moving up as a line like that, you're not flat out sprinting, but he is.
Yeah.
So then if a second guy is flat out sprinting, but the second guy flat out sprinting is a prop, so he's got half the pace.
Yeah.
Now there's a real big gap. So they want to move up as a line, as if he doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. That's the way I would train it anyway.
Yeah. And as a 9, Tom, what is it? Because Gareth, he doesn't do it every time. He doesn't run out like every pass. So what is it he's looking at? Is he looking at, the opposition are much flatter, therefore they're closer to a defensive line, and that's when I'm going to go? Or is he looking at this is going to be a long first pass, and that's the one I want to go for? What is it that you would be looking for as a 9 if you wanted to run an intercept?
I think it will be 2 things. One is he will have a natural instinct for that, and he'll have just done it a bunch when he was an amateur or when he was young or something, and just be like, I don't know, I can see it. And then he'll work with an analyst coach to set up the right conditions. And he'll be like, well, when you've got 2 forwards at the front like that and 10, you can see 10 between them, and they're like a triangle like that, that ball is probably going to be a long pass to one of those 2 forwards. And so therefore you can probably hit the gap. And they'll be looking for patterns because all rugby teams set up patterns for their passing, right? You can kind of work out where it's going to go 90% of the time anyway. And so they'll just be looking for a specific setup, and for him just to have that instinct of being like, I can go.
Yeah.
It'll be probably like a combination of the 2, because if you could train it outright, you'd get every 9 in the world to do it.
Yeah. That's a good point.
You'd be like running a line out. You'd just be like, one guy's hitting the line hard and trying to run an interception every time, but it's not possible. He's got some sort of sense for it, and then they've probably done some sort of analysis where they know these 2 guys are there, it's probably going to him. Another one would be, sometimes there's always going to be 2 forwards who are both there like pretending to receive the ball, but there's probably one guy who actually never receives it. So when he's there, it's going past him.
Yeah.
You might just be looking for one player who's like going to be, and he's like the dummy runner 90% of the time, and it's like, well, let's just do it then.
And did you guys have like in the under-20s intricate setups like that, or was it a little bit simpler and it was just about better fitness
in attack?
Yeah, either, I guess. Just that intricacy of play and like that level of attention to detail.
Yeah, you'd have different plays of 9, 10, from 9 to 10, from 9 to forwards out to the back, and a couple of times I messed up in training, so I wasn't switched on enough. Maybe that's why I was on a bench most of the games, all the games except one. But it's just when you get that done, is that you've got to pay attention to the video and everything. So if you mess up, they'll hammer you in analysis.
Yeah.
So the attention to detail is massive.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever been good enough to come up in analysis. So I just stand on the wing. I can't do anything wrong here. Callum, I promise not to take up too much of your time, because I know you're a busy guy. Thank you very much for joining and sharing some of that insight. Nice top. And
this is actually remember a couple of months back you sent me a large and it was too small.
Yeah.
I give this to my brother, but because I've lost weight now, the other one's
too
too
back.
I managed to take this one back.
You should have said I would send you some more.
Oh, it's fine.
But no, thanks again, buddy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll have to have you on sometime soon again, yeah?
Anytime.
Cheers, buddy.
Take care. Good to meet you, mate.
That's really, it's insane, isn't it? That even when you think like, how much does a 20-year-old know? But when you get to that level, it's just as serious, and it's just as intense as.
I think it's one where for sports, it's like you can take longer to work things out like that in almost any other discipline, because there's not a limit on your age other than retirement.
Yeah.
But sports, you've got to work things out of like how to be professional, how am I going to pick up this work capacity, how am I going to do that, how am I going to organize. Well, you have to figure that out when you're like a teenager. Otherwise, it's like really difficult. I don't want to say it's never going to happen, because I'm sure there's somebody who has, but realistically, it's not going to. So. You kind of have to be in that 13 to 20 range and really let it click that I need to, my work capacity needs to be up and I need to be a professional about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think having exposure to those training camps, I'm sure every nation in the world would love to expose more kids to those kind of camps if they can, because they teach you so much more. I think for some people it doesn't click. They just go, oh, it was a lot of work. And it doesn't click for them that that's the amount of work that it takes just to touch, have a taste, like just to get almost there.
Yeah.
Like, once you're there, it's even harder. That is like a taste a day.
Yeah, and I guess the other challenge that they've got is that you said that there's a time, like they are only going to ever play for that age grade for a 12-month period, or if they get in a little bit early, they might have 2 years in an age period, in an age grade. But after under 20s or under 21s or whatever, it goes to under 23s, I don't know, it will become men's. And after that, you're competing against the best in the business. And there is no kind of reduction of the squad or challenge, because it suddenly just will end up like a giant at the top of the funnel. So, and you've got to get in that niche to get that level of training to have even a chance of playing at men's, unless you're someone who's, there's nothing stopping Callum, like having lost that weight that he's lose a little bit more, develops an insanely good level of, like you said, GPP and general level of fitness, and like he's doing a lot of hit work, so he might be able to put that at quite a high output level, which is fantastic for rugby. Make his oppositions look rubbish at his grade level, get seen again by the coaches who go, oh, actually, this is not the same Callum. This guy's really good. And then, like you said, he's already been introduced to them, so he's not completely new, but he's an improved version, and maybe he does get back in the squad or get picked for the academy.
Yeah, I'm sure anything is possible. I think it comes down a lot of these things. Actually, I should have said when he was on, I was going to, and then we spoke about something else. So he said it's probably not going to work for him. He's not old, like he's young. He's very, very, very young, and he's had that exposure to know what the level needs to be. Yeah. And obviously, I don't know what his personal situation is. Might need to work and all sorts of different things, right? He might not have the luxury of just being able to spend 6 hours a day doing fitness. But if he can, like, that's what I'd recommend. Like, he should just wake up, do a training session, do whatever he needs to do during the day, do a training session in the evening, and just maintain that mentality that he had previously, where it was like, well, we're doing, 3, 4, 5 hours worth of training every single day. Like, just carry that through, especially through this like confinement period, and the whole COVID thing means lots of people are by themselves. Lots of people will take this time to slack off, and even at the most professional levels, people will not dedicate themselves to the work because it's kind of a bit of human nature. And if perhaps I'm not the most talented person in the world, you don't have to be. You can just outwork almost anybody to almost any level. Like, especially in a game as physical as rugby. Like, he can do a stupid amount of fitness training, get himself to be an absolute machine, and do technical analysis of his own games, or watch games and actively watch the games. Don't just watch the game and then go, well, that was a nice game for Wales. Take the recording, do video analysis, tear it all apart, do like mental work, like envision yourself, what would I have done in that situation, like all those types of things, like that mental training as well. That'll just improve your general awareness of the game. Why did that try happen? Why did this one not? Where was that opportunity? And actively thinking through those plays. How can that work for yourself? Like putting in the work, because most people will just watch the game and then go, well, it's COVID, I can't go out anyway, and I'll have a beer now.
Makes sense.
An hour doing the analysis and doing the mental imagery and building up mental fortitude. Like, there's so many things that you could be doing that's not passing the rugby ball to another human being, but still improve your rugby game.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good shout. And I guess it's that you go, but I will enjoy a beer, and I'll put all this effort in. What's my reward? We will reward as you're going to play for your country, and that's pretty enticing and definitely worth the shot, because if you don't do it now, eventually there will be an age where it's too late to have done it to get into that England, or I say England, Wales setup for Callum, or whatever international setup that you're in line to play for. So I guess it's one of those that, put that hard work in for the next few years, and you might, give yourself a second chance of playing and representing your country. Because once you're in, then you don't need to do that analysis. Someone else is going to do it for you. So actually it does get a little bit easier from that regard.
Yeah, but it's one where, like, even if you never made it, or you never quite made it, you never made it past semi-professional, even though you put in all of this work, the fact that you can put yourself through that amount of hard work will teach you something that will inform the rest of your life anyway.
Yeah, it might make him a great coach as well.
Make him a great coach, might make him a great businessman, it might make him a great almost anything else. Like, it's one of those things where it's unlikely that he puts in that amount of work and gets nothing out of it. It's almost never going to happen. At the very minimum, he'll be the best player in his own team. And perhaps makes it it still does a semi-professional level, or maybe has a couple of years at pro, or there could be all sorts of different things waiting around the corner, or just gives because you've done. Because people don't think about the world in this way, but it is actually how it works. Like, he had that shot in that, he's made those contacts, he puts all of this work in, does all of this training. He never quite has the physical skills, but because he's done that analysis part and the mental fortitude part, and used the time to do that, and then he goes and does a degree in coaching and analysis and biomechanics, he then becomes the analysis coach for the Welsh team. And and they say, have you ever done any analysis? He could say, actually, I analysed every game Wales played from 1970 to 2020 when we done the confinement. Did you? Yeah. And I recorded him, put it all up on YouTube. In fact, I would encourage him to do that.
Yeah, so would I. Like, give his breakdown.
Yeah, give his breakdown, put it. I don't care if nobody sees it, because that's going to be a reference in it. Like, when somebody says, prove that you've done that. Yeah, here you go. Here's 200 videos of me analysing every bloody game.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'll get you into Loughborough now on a scholarship. No problem. Because you demonstrated you can put in the work, and you're already a good rugby player, and the university will pay for your education now, put you through that. You've got the contacts to go and be the analysis guy. So no, you don't get to be the player, but you get to have a career in rugby as a...
Absolutely.
There's just so many different opportunities that can come out of just being able to put in that amount of work.
Yeah, and it's the most transferable skill. It's hard work. Yeah, you're right. It rarely doesn't pay off. Yeah.
Many things he could do. But we should clip this up and send it to him in case he doesn't want to listen to our podcast.
He's definitely listening to our podcast. Clearly. As far as I'm aware, he's our one diehard fan. I think that's a pretty good note to wrap it up on. Today it's been a really good chat. I think Callum's insight's been fantastic.
Yeah, really helpful.
And we definitely need to get him on as well, back on again, and maybe talk to him about some of the other stuff we've covered, and maybe dig a little deeper into training. Obviously, there's some stuff he probably isn't allowed to say because that's probably the IP of Wales Rugby, and they don't want to be maybe giving away some of their trade secrets. But the high level stuff that might help the juniors is absolutely something that I think I definitely want to pick on a bit more. And just his journey, I think it's just quite an interesting journey that he's been on. Not many people have done it, and I'm sure just hearing about it more will benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. And where he said, he's not been through academies that much, he doesn't come from privilege, so that's
make it.
There's a lot of people in that position who can relate to that story and get inspired, I think.
Absolutely. All right, mate. Thank you again for your time.
Right. It's been a pleasure as always.
Awesome, and we'll catch up on the next one.
Yep. See you later.
See ya.